All right. Welcome to another episode of Tuesdays with Audi, and I am your host, Audi. So usually as new investors, people would ask me, Audi, how do I know which company I should invest in? Honestly, I can't tell you the answer to that question, but as a new investor, I am going to tell you how you can buy a stock and you will benefit from it by not knowing a whole lot in terms of stock picking. If you want to go ahead and pick individual stock, it's like trying to pick the correct number for the lottery and getting that jackpot. It is difficult, but when you put your entire money into one particular company, you can reap the rewards and also the risk of putting all your money in one company. The reward would be that if the share price goes up, you will get the maximum amount of return for investing in that one company. But if the share price goes down, then you will reap the rewards of losing as much of your money as possible. But we all have heard the term and the saying that don't put all your eggs in one basket. So ladies and gentlemen, that's the beauty of picking individual stock and the downturn of doing so. Let's look at this scenario. What if you had $10 and you wanted to go and buy some ice cream? Now you went into the ice cream parlor that have your favorite 5 flavors of ice cream, but each ice cream costs $5. With this $10, you can purchase 2 flavors and leave out the other 3 that you like. But however, getting those 2, you would likely be concerned about what if I really wanted those other 3 instead of just picking those 2. Now with the same $10, if you went to an ice cream parlor that allowed you to take this $10 and sample all 5 flavors of your favorite ice cream into one bowl, which one of those ice cream parlors would you likely go take your $10 and buy ice cream in? If you're like me, and I think majority of the people, you likely wanted to go to the second parlor and get to try all 5 flavors of your ice cream for $10. And that is the beauty of an ETF. From the last episode, I mentioned that an ETF is a security that tracks an index, a commodity, or some other asset by making it into one single stock. An ETF is like the second ice cream parlor where you can buy just one and you will have access to all of those major companies that are underneath their management. So in this particular episode, I am going to talk about 2 particular ETF that tracks a particular index in the US, which is the S&P 500 index. And the S&P 500 index is the index that tracks the top 500 companies in the US. And the definition in the index is that the index is a measure of how well the US economy is doing. But seeing that during the pandemic, a lot of people lost their jobs and the S&P 500 index hit all-time high records. I don't really know how truthful that is, but then again, it's a topic for another day. So the 2 ETF that tracks the S&P 500 index are the Vanguard S&P 500, which is VOO, and the S&P 500 ETF, which is SPY, and both of those companies' prices are different. However, that's due to the fact that their holdings are slightly different, so that influences the price of both of those particular ETFs. So some of the beauties of actually buying an ETF. As a new investor, you wouldn't necessarily need to worry about picking which one of the best companies you need to have. While you won't have enough money to buy every single one of those companies, it allows you to buy all of them for just one small price of whatever the price is for that particular ETF that you are interested in. Another advantage is that if one of those companies in that ETF doesn't do well, or if one of those companies in the index, in the S&P 500 index is not up to the criteria for the S&P 500, they are removed and they are replaced with another company that meets the criteria, and you don't have to do any work on your end for making sure that that company is replaced, because the ETF and the people who track it in terms of making sure they're up to par will make that change themselves. Another benefit of doing so is that you don't have to worry about picking individual stocks, because answering the question of which company I should invest in, you won't necessarily have to worry about it, because you will have all the best companies in the S&P 500 index, which are examples such as Amazon, Tesla, Google, Apple, Coca-Cola, Pampers, Kleenex, whatever companies hold them, they will be underneath that given index, and also the ETF that tracks that particular index. Another benefit to you is that while you are invested in that ETF, you will be getting paid a dividend every 3 months, which is passive income for you as you invest in it. Now, seeing that those prices were a little bit high, I know some of you guys are like, how am I supposed to buy this thing if I don't have the money? yes, there's another way you can actually do so. You can buy a fixed dollar amount into that given ETF, and you will be given the equivalent amount of shares for that fixed dollar amount. Let's just say, for example, if you wanted to buy $10 worth of that ETF every single week or month, then the equivalent would be this particular amount of shares in that given ETF. So while I was fixated on those two major ETFs that track the S&P 500 index, there are different ETFs for different things that you may be interested in. For example, if you are just simply interested in tech, there are ETFs for tech. If you are interested for ETF that strictly just look for dividend paying companies, there's an ETF for dividend paying companies. If you are interested in ETF that tracks different economies such as the US, Europe, India, Brazil, Russia, there's an ETF for that as well. If you are interested in biotech, there's an ETF for that. If you are interested in weed or marijuana, there's an ETF for that as well. So there's ETF for almost anything that you may be considering. So therefore, that will give you access to purchasing companies underneath something that you are interested in for one particular price. And that is the first thing I would say in terms of buying your first stock or share, or investing in your first stock or share, is purchase an ETF and try to find a fixed dollar amount that you can put into it if you cannot afford the entire price of that given ETF. For me personally, it's like I wish someone had told me that that was one of the things I could have done when I first started instead of actually trying to pick individual stocks, because during my first 2 years or so in the stock market, I suffered a lot of losses trying to pick the right company that would bring me the maximum amount of return. And I even suffered some bankruptcy by picking some companies that I thought was going to do good. So therefore, it's like if someone had given me this information as a new investor in the stock market, I would have at least appreciated it in terms of someone coming up to me and saying, okay, Audi, if you actually don't know anything about the stock market, this is what you should do while you are learning about the stock market. And an ETF is a good way for you to learn about the stock market and how it works by not actually exposing yourself to as much risk as possible, because then someone else is going to be taking care of all of the work for you, but you are just buying one share in that particular company. And in the ETF, it's unlikely that all the companies in that ETF will actually go down at the same time. And if they do, then it's up to the people who are managing it to make sure that it's up to standard in terms of what that ETF is supposed to be. But yes, that would be one of the first stocks I would recommend that you buy, is an ETF that tracks something that you are interested in. Preferably, I would say the S&P 500 index. But if you are don't have the money and you don't want to actually look at a small amount of percentage for how much your dollar amount is giving you, then it's okay. But then again, you can also, like I said, find an ETF that you are interested in and invest a certain amount into it and get your first stock, and then reap the rewards of actually getting some dividends as you continue to learn about the stock market, and don't have to sit on the sidelines and trying to pick the right company that you feel as though is going to give you the best possible return in a given investment. So while you are in ETF, I would recommend that you continue to study, continue to learn, and then you can start picking stock individually. But if you already know a company that you are interested in and you just want to invest in because you like the company, then you can do so as well. But then again, this is for beginners. And the best thing I would say is buy an ETF. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this particular video and that you found some very useful information in it as you begin your investment journey in the stock market. And go ahead and share it with somebody. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and share. And with that said, peace, love, and enjoyment. Do this. I'm Audi. See you guys next week, and we will discuss further on this particular topic. Or, since the month of April is coming to an end, who knows, we may continue this or we may go on to a different topic. But since I think I'm loving this particular topic, we'll see how that goes.